Okay, good morning everybody. Today we would be talking about rheumatic fever. So what is rheumatic fever? You have done this in your medicine class also. So this would, I think, be a kind of revision for you. So what is rheumatic fever? What is rheumatic fever? So what is rheumatic fever? It is an immunologically mediated inflammatory disorder which is caused by group A streptococcal pharyngeal infection. So why does this group A streptococcal infection leads to a multi-system involvement? There are many theories regarding this, but the exact cause, it is supposed to be an immune-mediated disease. So it is a multi-system disease which will affect the connective tissue, especially of the heart, the joint, the brain, the cutaneous and the subcutaneous tissue. It is a non-communicable disease, but it has been found to take place after a communicable disease, especially the streptococcal pharyngitis. Now, rheumatic fever leads to rheumatic heart disease, and this is one of the commonest cause of non-inherited rheumatic heart disease which can be prevented. And where is it prevalent? It is primarily prevalent in the poor and underdeveloped countries, and as I have told you, it is a preventable disease. Now, what is the age group which is affected? Now, the age group that is affected commonly is between the age of 5 to 30 years of age. It accounts for around 12 to 65% of people who are coming to the hospital for cardiovascular disease in developing countries, and there has been a decrease in the cases of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease in developed countries because of better health system and implementation of the preventive programs. Now, what is the incidence in India? Incidence in India of rheumatic heart disease is nearly 5 to 7 per thousand in 5 to 15 years age group. There are nearly 1 million cases of rheumatic heart disease in the country, and it constitutes nearly 20 to 30% cases of heart disease which are admitted in the hospitals. And what is the most common? It is caused by the streptococcal infection, which is very common in children, especially in the underprivileged children, and nearly 1 to 3% of the children would be affected. So if you see the map of the world map, so India, if you see, comes in this group, that is where the disease is 2.2 per thousand cases. So it is a very high risk area, this area. So it's all the underdeveloped countries. You can see the sub-Saharan Africa, where it is nearly in the 5 to 7. So India is also a area where there is a very high prevalence of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. It is also common in, especially if you see the New Zealand belt, it is more common in the aboriginal population like the Maoris, and in Australia also in the indigenous population they have significant amount of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. Now, what is the epidemiology? Now, it is an important cause of chronic disease and death in developing world. Now, why is it important? Because most of the time it goes underdiagnosed and undertreated, and the age group that is most susceptible is 5 to 15 years of age group, and generally below 3 years of age it is not common. And what are the factors, environmental factors, that are causing our country to be area where it is more endemic? It is because there is overcrowding, there is poor sanitation, there is poverty, poor housing condition, 15 people living in one rooms. Same thing has happened with corona also, because there was overcrowding, people were spreading the infection from one to another, and the incident increases during fall, winter and the early spring. So if you see, we have the agent factors, we have the environmental factors and the host factors which interact together to form a vicious circle leading to development of rheumatic heart disease. So what are the agent factors? Now it is caused by what is known as the group A streptococcal infection, streptococci, also called as the gas. Now what are the strains? It is caused by the strains 1, 3, 5, 7, 18 and 29. 1, 3, 5, 6, 18 and 29. These are the strains of streptococci which are known to be the rheumatogenic strains of streptococci which lead to development of rheumatic fever. All strains of streptococci will not cause development of rheumatic fever. It is only the particular strains of streptococci which are known as the rheumatic strains of streptococci. So they are 1, 3, 6, 18 and 29. Okay, so these strains you can check up from your books. Now, what is the age group that is commonly affected? Age group, it is commonly seen in the adolescent age group in the 5 to 15 years of age. And initial, if it is occurs in the younger age group, the valvular lesion develops faster. And what is the most common valve that is involved? It is the mitral valve leading to mitral stenosis. Even the aortic valve is also involved. Now both the sexes are equally affected, and what is the cause? It is said to be due to the immune, it is an immune mediated disease. It is not the toxin of the gas bacteria. Socioeconomic status, if it is more common in the lower socioeconomic strata where they live, where there is poor hygiene, poor sanitation, and more common in the school age group of 5 to 15 years. So this is just telling you about what are the factors, like environmental factors. If you see, there's a poverty, undernutrition, overcrowding, poor housing. Now what does it do? It causes the spread of group A streptococcal strains who have difficulty in assessing. So they have higher incidence of pharyngitis, higher incidence of rheumatic fever, and high incidence of a recurrent attack of rheumatic fever and leading to rheumatic heart disease. Now what are another factor is that in our own country we can see there is shortage of resources and healthcare, inadequate resources, low level of awareness of disease in the community, leading to inadequate diagnosis. And once this person has developed streptococcal pharyngitis, treatment with antibiotic is very essential, and treatment has to be given for a particular duration. If inadequate treatment is there, inadequate prophylaxis is given, it will lead to higher incidence of recurrent and frequent involvement of the heart. Now what is the pathophysiology? Now pathophysiology is that you have a, do you have? You have an environmental factor where there is overcrowding. The person will develop group A streptococcal infection or gas infection. So patient will not develop rheumatic fever immediately after developing pharyngitis. There is always a 2 to 4 weeks interval after which the person will develop rheumatic fever. So they say it is a molecular mimicry between group A streptococcus and the host tissues, which leads to an exaggerated T cell immune mediated response. So it is basically an autoimmune disease. So there is a mimicry between the group A streptococcus epitopes and the epitopes in the human heart, in the brain, in the joint, which all lead to exaggerated T cell response, and this exaggerated T cell response leads to an immune mediated response, and which ultimately leads to development of rheumatic fever. So first episode of rheumatic fever. This is also determined by genetic factors. All children will not develop rheumatic fever, and all children will not go to develop rheumatic heart disease. So it's also genetically determined. And a person who develops recurrent attacks of rheumatic fever ultimately will go to develop rheumatic heart disease. So it is a molecular mimicry of the host and the antigen. So we find that once the patient has developed pharyngeal infection, there is always a gap of around 2 to 6 weeks before the person will develop rheumatic fever. What happens is that the body, what I talked about is molecular mimicry. What is molecular mimicry? Antibodies are produced against streptococci. Now these antibodies will cross-react with the human tissue because of the antigenic similarity between streptococcal component and the human connective tissue. So there are certain parts in the human body which have certain similarity with the antigen of the streptococci. So the antibodies which are directed against the streptococci now get directed against the human tissue. So immunologically mediated inflammation, what is known as autoimmune. So what you have, the involvement of the heart, joint, brain, and the other parts of the connective tissue. So what are the epitopes? So you can see there are certain epitopes. If you see, the capsular hyaluronic acid has similarity with the joint hyaluronic acid. So there is a cross reaction there. Then you have the mimicry with the heart valve tissue. So there is involvement of the heart valve tissue. And then even in the brain. So there are all parts of the the structure of the streptococci. There is certain things like the cell wall, then M protein, which are similar to the myosin, tropomyosin, keratin, actin of the human body. So there is, because of this mimicry, antibodies that are produced by the human body does not recognize that these antibodies are not for the strepto gas, but they act against the human heart. So now, so that because of what I have said, so there are certain similarity between the hyaluronic acid in the gas capsule and the connective tissue of the joint. So antibodies produced against the gas capsule will attack the joint and cause the arthritis. Similarly, antibodies produced against the M protein of the cell wall will attack the heart and lead to carditis. So these are all factors. So it is basically autoimmunity. So if you see, these are the heart valves which will be affected. So as the heart valves get affected, ultimately they will develop fibrosis. This is just a feature. So what other features you have? The most important feature is the streptococcal sore throat. So this is how the streptococcal sore throat will occur, and after 2 to 6 weeks you will have involvement of the joint, the heart, the skin and the nervous system. So let's start with the streptococcal sore throat. I am sure as kids you all had developed sore throat, but maybe some of you might have gone to develop rheumatic fever, others may not, but as we live in the slightly better of societies, we are not prone to develop streptococcal heart rheumatic fever. So what does a streptococcus throat lead to? So you will have again a sore throat. Patient will present with sore throat. He might have tender lymph nodes in the cervical region. Then tonsillar exudate would be present in the older children. And what is the positive? How to diagnose it? By doing a throat culture. But this throat culture is many times we do not do it. We miss it. So this is how the throat of the child will look. It will be all swollen throat. There would be exudative patches on the tonsils out here. So now after 2 to 6 weeks of infection with the gas bacteria, patient will now develop fever, pallor, malaise, and this is how a patient with rheumatic fever is going to present. So he has a preceding history of upper respiratory tract infection. There were tonsillar exudates present. He became okay, and after around 2 to 6 weeks, maybe his mother and father have also already forgotten that the child had this. So now the child will again come to you with fever. He will have pallor. He will have malaise. So, and now we will come and talk about the major and minor manifestation of rheumatic fever. So what is rheumatic fever? So rheumatic fever is a constellation of symptoms, and these constellation of symptoms occur 2 to 6 weeks after a gas infection. So what are the major manifestation? One is polyarthritis, second carditis, synonym scoria, erythema marginatum and subcutaneous nodules. And what are the minor manifestation? The patient will have fever, patient can have arthralgia, patient can have epistaxis, patient can have serositis, patient can have involvement of the lung, kidney and CNS. So any of the involvement can be there. So this is just a cartoon which you can see, like what does rheumatic fever affect? It will affect the heart. So what will heart be? There would be valvulitis. So this gush, this is all the murmurs that you will hear. Then if there is pericarditis, you will hear a rub. If there is myocarditis, there would be accelerated heart rates. Then you can have erythema marginatum, you will have subcutaneous nodules, you have arthralgia and chorea when the whole body is moving around. So this is just a pictorial of to make it interesting. There's fever, patient is having fever, he is having lumped up. So I'm just imitating. Then he will do synonym scoria, he'll do a bit St. Vitus dance, then he'll have raised ASO titers and high, and they might develop vegetation later on. So what is arthritis? Now what is the kind of arthritis that you have in rheumatic fever? I will describe all the manifestation and then I'll tell you how do you classify by Jones criteria, because now the Jones criteria after 2015 has been primarily divided into low risk country and moderate and high risk country. So the criteria in low risk countries are slightly different from criteria from moderate or high risk countries. So we come in the moderate and high risk countries. So what is polyarthritis? So polyarthritis is the commonest feature which is seen in 90% of cases of rheumatic fever. So the joint will be extremely red, tender and painful. So even if you put a blanket or a bed sheet on the child, it will be extremely painful. So the joint is what? Red, tender, inflamed. He is unable to move that joint and it's extremely painful. The important part of this is it is a migratory arthritis. And it commonly affects the larger joints. So it will affect the knee joint, the ankle joint, the your elbow joint. So what will happen is that you will have, first of all, supposing it starts in left knee joint, after 2 to 4 to 5 days it will go to the right knee joint. So it is going to migrate. So the joint which was first involved will be totally fine. Now the second joint will be involved. So knees, ankle, wrist, elbow, shoulder, generally the smaller joints and cervical spine are less commonly involved. So this will help us to differentiate it from rheumatoid arthritis, that is juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which is seen in younger age group. So important thing to remember that it is a migratory arthritis. It moves from one joint to another, and once it has moved to the other joint, the previous joint will be absolutely fine. And it gives excellent response to salicylate and NSAID. So supposing if a child has come to you, a parent has come to you that my child is having severe pain in the joint, what you should do is you should avoid giving that child salicylates or NSAID. Because what will happen is that it will alter the course of the illness and you will not be able to make the diagnosis. So in those time what you can do is you can give the child paracetamol or acetaminophen and observe how the disease is progressing further. So in children below 5 years of age, arthritis usually is mild, but carditis is most prominent. And arthritis generally does not go on to become a chronic disease. Now then you come to carditis. So polyarthritis, now you have come to know what is polyarthritis. So polyarthritis, it's a migratory arthritis and responds excellently to NSAIDs and aceto and salicylates. Then you come to carditis. Carditis is a very important early and a serious manifestation of rheumatic fever. Now it can be a pancarditis. Most common is valvulitis. Valvulitis is the most common. Then you can have involvement of the myocardium leading to myocarditis, pericardium leading to pericarditis, or everything can be involved leading to pancarditis. And sequely to this is it will lead to damage of the valve, and most common valves that are involved are the mitral valve and the aortic valve, and valvular damage will lead to what is known as fish mouth valve and lead to stenosis. दिख भी नहीं रहा है. So any cardiac valve will be affected, but the most common valve that is affected is the mitral or the cardiac valve. Now seldom isolated pericarditis or myocarditis can take place. Now what happens if you have valvular involvement? Most commonly the mitral valve is involved. What you have is regurgitation. So mitral patient will present with mitral regurgitation. There would be a murmur of mitral regurgitation which will be heard in the apex, or you can have aortic regurgitation. Now rheumatic heart disease is a permanent heart valve damage and resulting from one or more attacks of rheumatic fever. And it is thought that more than 40 to 60% of patients with rheumatic fever will develop rheumatic heart disease. So this is how person will present to you. When the child presents to you with rheumatic heart disease, rheumatic fever causing carditis, patient will have high pulse rate. So what if you see the pulse of the patient, pulse rate would be more than normal for that age, because in pediatric age group we have to take the age also. So according to the age you have heart rate, so it will be a high pulse rate. There would be a murmur. And the murmur is of aortic or mitral regurgitation. Then because if the myocardium is involved, patient can have cardiomegaly. If pericardium is involved, it is lead to pericardial friction rub and pericarditis. Then if you see an ECG, there would be prolonged PR interval, and ultimately he will go to cardiac failure. Now what are the investigations you do for carditis? First of all, to check for cardiomegaly and pulmonary congestion, you have to do an X-ray which will tell you how the cardiomegaly is there. Then ECG has to be taken, which will tell you that the patient is having prolonged PR interval, which is another minor criteria, and an echo. Echo is a must now, because echo is also one of the which has come into one of the criteria for diagnosis of rheumatic carditis. So you can have where it will show you cardiac dilatation, valve involvement, and pericardial effusion. So this is how if you see, this is how a heart will look. Normal heart is like this. So here what is there is hypertrophy, heart muscles have become thick, and if you see this X-ray, there is a cardiomegaly. So this is, we will teach you when you learn how to see the X-rays. So this is showing basically cardiomegaly. So this is how you diagnose. And once the patient has developed heart disease, you can see the valves are all thickened and fused. So another view of thickened aortic valve in heart disease. Now we come to the another major criteria. So we have talked about joint involvement, we have talked about heart involvement. Now we come to Sydenham's chorea. Now Sydenham's chorea is a late manifestation of rheumatic fever, and it can occur maybe months, 3 to 6 months after the patient has had upper respiratory tract infection, that is gas infection. Most commonly it occurs in girls in 1 to 15 years of age group, and it's seen in 5 to 10% of the cases. Now how does a patient present? So the parents will say that the child is become inattentive in the classroom, he keeps fidgeting around. So this is how they will present, because there would be no fever in these patients. So they will just come with these complaints that the child is not attentive in his class, his handwriting has changed, his handwriting has become poor from being a good student, he is not taking interest in his class, he has these sudden jerky movements of his hands, which is affecting his daily dressing also. His speech would be affected and he would be very fidgety. So what you have is mostly a choreiform movements which affects the head also and the upper limb. So how do you diagnose? I'm sure you have done this. One is called as the jack-in-the-box tongue. Like what happens is that his tongue, if you ask him to move his tongue in and out, it will move like a have you seen the what do you call a doll which keeps popping in and out? So that is how his head will keep moving with his tongue moving in and out. Apart from that, if you ask him to pronate and supinate his hand, it will not go in a proper motion. They will just keep trembling. There will be jerky movements. Plus, if you have what is called as the milkmaid sign, you give him your finger and ask him to press. He will press it like you do if you have seen somebody milking the cow, they have to keep pressing their hand. So he will keep moving his hand. So that is a milkmaid sign. Plus, you have the hand. If you see, they will suddenly move in and out. So see, this is how the child will move his hand. If you can see the photograph, see his hands are moving up, his legs are moving up and down, and the child has difficulty in walking, talking. The mother will tell you that he used to button his shirt, now he cannot button his shirt. He is having difficulty in combing his hair also. So this is usually benign and generally resolves within 2 to 3 months and disappears later. Now coming to the fourth manifestation is erythema marginatum. Now it occurs in less than 7% of the cases. What do you have in this? You have a unique transient serpiginous rash which looks like a rash. It has, I'll show you the photograph. So this is how it will look. So see, so there is a clear center, there is a macules here with clear centers in it. So how will you describe it? It is a serpiginous looking lesion. There are pink macules with clear centers, and it is present more on the trunks and limbs, but it is non-itchy. So this is very important to know that it does not itch. So this differentiates it from other dermatological conditions. Then it is never seen on face and worsens on application of heat and is often associated with chronic carditis. So this is how it will look. See, and it is more commonly seen in people who have fair skin. So maybe in our Indian skin we may not be able to see this manifestation. Now coming to the fifth manifestation, that is the subcutaneous nodules. Now what are subcutaneous nodules? These are small, painless, mobile, hard lumps which are seen just beneath the skin, and where they are seen, they are most commonly seen on the extensor surfaces of the joints, especially the knees, elbows and wrist. They can also be seen on bony prominences, tendons, dorsum of the feet, occiput and cervical spine. So when you are examining the patient, you have to remove his clothes and see, otherwise you might miss, especially if they are present on the spine, etc., on the spine or on the back, you may miss it. So you have, whenever you examine, you have to examine the child in full. And when do they appear? They generally appear in the 4th week after the onset of rheumatic fever. They do not leave they generally disappear and leave no residual damage and they are often associated with carditis. So this is how they will look. See, you can make out these 10 nodules out here. See, so these are the nodules. These are non-firm. They are firm and non-tender. So they are, what are they? They are firm and they are, so these are the nodules. So on the sides also you can see. I hope you can make out from the picture. So you have to examine the child, and they will be isolated or in clusters. The minor manifestation. Now what is the minor manifestation? In minor manifestation you have fever. Now fever generally now you have divided, don't see this 39.39 degree. Now the fever is divided into two parts. In low risk countries you take the fever as 38.5 degree, and in high risk countries, if the patient is having fever of 38 degrees centigrade, is significant and lasts for a very long time. Then patient can also have epistaxis. Now you come to the minor manifestation. In minor manifestations you have a lab diagnostic criteria also. So in lab diagnostic criteria, what do you have? You have a high ESR. Now in high ESR also, two important points to remember in high ESR, that it is again been divided into low risk countries and high risk countries. In low risk countries, the ESR has to be more than 60 millimeter in 1 hour. In high risk countries, क्या हुआ? उनको सुनाई दे रहा है कि नहीं?
अब बंद हो गया।
मैं तो बोल ही रही हूँ, कब से बंद हुआ है?
नहीं, चला गया था, पावर गया
तो बहुत देर से बंद हो गया फिर तो।
देख क्रॉस हो गया।
हाँ? तुम तो बहुत आगे ले गए उसको, अभी तक वहाँ पहुँची नहीं हूँ मैं।
नहीं, 1 मिनट।
यहाँ इससे पहले भी तो लाइट गया था।
ये
इससे पहले भी तो लाइट गई थी।
नहीं, कहाँ अभी कहाँ तक गया था?
हाँ?
कौन सा लाइट में गया था? स्लाइड
अभी मैं डायग्नोसिस तो आगे जाओ। अरे हाँ, इसके बाद आगे फिर तुम पीछे जा रहे हो। हाँ, यहाँ पर हो, पीछे जाओ, पीछे। हाँ, यहाँ पर हो।
नहीं, अभी पावर है ना। अभी उस टाइम पावर गया था तो पावर था, मतलब नेट था, अब नेट नहीं है।
तो अब क्या करना है?
चालू कर देता हूँ।
वैसे भी बच्चों में इंटरेस्ट नहीं है और इंटरेस्ट आ जाएगा।
Welcome and thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping people around the world communicate for free.
Hello, and thank you for using Free Conference Call. Due to the high cost of dial-in access, we will soon require users in India to connect using internet calling or a United States dial-in number. To use our free internet calling, please download our app by visiting www.freeconferencecall.com/downloads. iOS, Mac, and PC. We will now connect you, and please enjoy your conference.
All participants are muted. There are 108 participants in the conference.
Okay, I'm going to restart now. So I can see there are 108 students. Rest of the students are enjoying their holiday, I think. And all of you, I'm sure, are not doing like putting your headphones and sleeping off in the room. Don't do that because it's a very important topic, so you must hear it. Okay, so in high ESR, the important thing to remember is now it has been divided into two parts, in high risk countries and low risk countries. In high risk countries, even the ESR of 30 millimeter is significant, whereas in low risk countries, a ESR has to be more than 60 millimeter. Apart from that, the patient will have anemia, leukocytosis, then elevated C-reactive protein. This has also again been divided into two parts. In low risk countries, it has to be more than 3 milligram, whereas in high risk countries, less than 3 is also taken as significant. Then presence of previous streptococcal infection is denoted by doing an ASO titer. So you do an elevated ASO or a streptococcal antibody titer. So a rising titer shows that patient has previous gas infection. Other test that you can do is anti-DNase beats test and a throat culture which will not be positive. So ASO titers and anti-DNase B test has to be done. Now how do you reach the diagnosis? For the diagnosis, American cardiologist by the name of Thomas Duckett Jones, he laid down what was known as the Jones criteria. Now the Jones criteria for diagnosis of rheumatic fever says that if you have two major or one major and two minor manifestation, that shows that the patient is having rheumatic activity. So previous history of a definite rheumatic fever or rheumatic heart disease were considered as a major criteria for diagnosis of recurrence of rheumatic fever and did not require strict application of these guidelines, and minor manifestation were considered significant for diagnosis. So preceding streptococcal infection has been emphasized for the diagnosis of rheumatic fever. Insidious chronic carditis, chorea were exempted to demonstrate streptococcal etiology. So if I tell you in gist, important thing to remember according to Jones criteria are: rheumatic fever is diagnosed if there are two major and two minor manifestation. Then a previous history of rheumatic fever is important to be diagnosed. Similarly, if patient is having chronic carditis or chorea, in those individual a previous streptococcal etiology need not be demonstrated. Now, what was the need to revise the Jones criteria? The need to revise the Jones criteria came because slowly in developed countries the incidence of rheumatic fever declined. Now because the incidence of rheumatic fever declined, high specificity at the cost of lowered sensitivity. So what happened is that you were over-diagnosing rheumatic fever. So because of that, they said that we must revise this criteria to divide it into high-risk countries and low-risk countries. So in 2015, the criteria was revised. So this is the summary of 2015 Jones criteria. So they have divided it into two categories: a low-risk population. So what is a low-risk population? A low-risk population is where rheumatic fever incidence is less than 2 per 1 lakh population. Okay, so I hope this you can see this chart clearly. So this criteria is the criteria which we are following now, and this you should remember. So what is the low risk population? Low risk population was population where rheumatic fever incidence is less than 2 per 1 lakh population, school age children, or all age rheumatic heart disease prevalence of less than 1 per 1000 population per year. So a population of less than 2 or heart disease of less than 1 per 1000 population. So what is the major criteria here? One is the presence of carditis, which can be clinical or subclinical. Then arthritis, which can be polyarthritis. Then chorea, erythema marginatum, subcutaneous nodule. So these are the major criteria. The important point to remember in carditis is now you have involvement of the subclinical criteria also. ये खत्म बंद हो गया फिर से? ओ भैया फिर बंद हो गया है? बंद हो गया? हाँ वो आ रहा है इसमें फिर terminated. Then what are the minor criteria? You have minor criteria. You have carditis, which is उसमें आ रहा है कि अब conference terminated. अभी आया था हाँ?
कुछ काम कर रहे हैं नीचे जब कुछ कर रहे हैं बात कर रहे थे
Welcome and thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping people around the world communicate for free. All participants are muted.
Hello, and thank you for using Free Conference Call. Due to the high cost of dial-in access, we will soon require users in India to connect using internet calling or a United States dial-in number. To use our free internet calling, please download our app by visiting www.freeconferencecall.com/downloads. The app is available on Android, iOS, Mac, and PC. We will now connect you, and please enjoy your conference.
There are 115 participants in the conference.
Well, I think we are having repeated interruptions today, so sorry for the interruption. I hope you have all had your tea and your breakfast and all raring to go ahead. Okay, so sorry. So let's focus on this chart, and this chart is the most important chart of the whole teaching schedule today. So if you know this chart, you know rheumatic fever. Okay, so just concentrate on this chart and concentrate well. So important thing to remember is, first of all, in a low risk population. So I am talking about low risk population, which is most of the European countries, America, Australia, and the developed countries. So here the major criteria are carditis, which can be clinical or subclinical. And what do you mean by subclinical is which can be seen only on echocardiography without auscultatory finding. So initially when we said carditis clinical means you had to have a murmur, the patient had high pulse rate, patient might be having might be in failure. But now even if patient is having fever, what you do is that you get an echo done and you can see presence of valvular involvement. So valvulitis which is present on echo is known as subclinical. So the major criteria are carditis, arthritis which is polyarthritis, you have chorea, erythema marginatum and subcutaneous nodule. And what are the minor criteria? Minor criteria are you have carditis which is prolonged PR interval on ECG, arthralgia. So here you see what is you have is polyarthralgia. So what is arthralgia? Arthralgia is involvement is painful joints without involvement of the joint per se. So you just have pain in your knee joints. So here, like I said, the fever would be more than 38.5 degrees centigrade. So this is significant. And what are the markers of inflammation that you are taking? You are taking ESR which is more than 60 millimeter in first hour, or CRP which is more than 3 milligram per deciliter, and presence of a previous streptococcal infection. Now we come to moderate or high risk population. So this is the population of our country. Now then, I showed you the chart, the map of the world where Africa is there, then you have the New Zealand, you have the Maoris there, then your ethnic population of Australia, so they come in the moderate and high risk. So these are children where the incidence of acute rheumatic fever is more than 2 per 1 lakh population, or more than 1 child is having rheumatic heart disease per 1000 population. So this is children of high risk population. So the major criteria again here is clinical and or subclinical, but the major change is in arthritis. So now in arthritis, even if the child is having monoarthritis, you can consider this child to be having rheumatic fever. You do not have to have polyarthritis. Apart from that, monoarthritis, they are taking even polyarthralgia as a major criteria. So the important difference is, in low risk countries polyarthritis, but in our country if a child is having monoarthritis or he is having polyarthralgia, we will still take him to be case of major manifestation of rheumatic fever. So this will come in major criteria. But important to remember is, if you are taking monoarthritis, you have to rule out other causes of monoarthritis. Maybe the child is having septic infection of the joint. So you have to first of all rule out that it is not due to any other cause. So only then a monoarthritis can be taken as a major criteria. Then chorea would remain like same, erythema marginatum is same, subcutaneous nodule is same. In the minor criteria, what changes do you have? Here again, prolonged PR interval would remain same. Here again, monoarthralgia. So if they are just having a pain of the joint, of a single joint also, it is taken as a minor criteria of Jones. So in our country, if a child comes with monoarthritis or arthralgia, he would be taken as a major or minor criteria. Again the fever. A fever of more than 38 degrees centigrade is considered a minor criteria. In high risk and in low risk countries we saw it was 38.5, but here it is 38 degree. Then ESR, if you see the ESR here, more than 30 millimeter is considered positive, and CRP, which is again more than or equal to 3 gram. So even but here even lower side of CRP, that is even if it is 3, you take it as positive. So these are the major differences between a moderate high risk countries and a low risk countries. Our country is a moderate high risk country, so we can take monoarthritis, you can take subclinical carditis and fever of 38 degrees as a Jones criteria. So in Jones criteria, the important changes that have taken place is now echocardiography, because now is a age where there are a lot of diagnostic tools available with us. So echocardiography should be done in all patients. So when you do echocardiography, if you see valvulitis, you can consider it as a major criteria. So AHA criteria, manifestation of ARF into major and minor criteria. First episode of acute rheumatic fever is diagnosed when recent streptococcal infection is in addition to 2 major or 1 major and 2 minor criteria are present. Now, what are the 3 main changes? Like I have told you, echocardiographic detection is important for subclinical carditis, and joint manifestation has been changed. Now, why did they do this? Because they found that in the high risk and the low risk countries, especially in America, because of good sanitation, good health facilities, the incidence of rheumatic fever had come down, but there was overdiagnosis. So to prevent that, they came up with this criteria. Whereas in low risk countries, we still continue to have, there is very little change in the incidence. So we want to pick up children earlier, treat them better, so that we can prevent rheumatic heart disease. So this I have talked to you about all this. Addition of subclinical as a major manifestation, I will leave that. And diagnosis of subclinical carditis can be based on presence of MR or AR on either you can do this by auscultation if it is pathological, or normal echocardiogram can rule out diagnosis of carditis made through clinical auscultation. Okay, joint manifestation, I have again told you that how will you differentiate. Now we are taking monoarthritis and monoarthralgia, and important to remember is that we want to see how the disease progresses. So do not give any medication which will alter the condition. So another important thing to remember about monoarthritis is 16 to 18% of children have monoarthritis, and 55% may go on to develop rheumatic heart disease. So in minor criteria, again I have told you what is the difference between the two countries. Now what are the echocardiographic criteria for diagnosis of subclinical carditis? Now this you may not remember, but just to tell you that now because we have so many diagnostic modalities with us, what we can do is we can do a echo, and which will tell you what are the features that are seen. So pathological mitral regurgitation, which should meet all the 4 criteria, then you can put it as rheumatic carditis. So it should be seen in 2 views. The jet length of more than 2 cm in at least 1 view. Peak velocity should be more than 3 milliseconds. Pan-systolic jet in at least 1 envelope. So this, I think your cardiology colleague would be able to discuss better, because he has to see all this thing, and then he will tell us that this is a rheumatic valvular involvement. Similarly for aortic valve also, it should be seen again in 2 views. Jet length should be more than 1 centimeter at least in 1 view. Peak velocity should be more than 3 milliseconds, and it should be a pan-systolic jet. So once these criteria are fulfilled, only then the person we will put the diagnosis of rheumatic valvulitis based on echocardiographic finding, known as subclinical carditis. Okay. So this is just a this I will not do. Now what are the exceptions to Jones criteria? One is chorea, if it is present alone, it is diagnostic of rheumatic fever. You do not need to have preceding evidence of a streptococcal infection. Then similarly, if a patient is having insidious or late onset carditis with no explanation, we take it as a rheumatic fever. And patient who has documented rheumatic heart disease or a prior rheumatic fever or one major criteria of fever, arthralgia or high CRP suggests recurrence. So what would be the recurrence? So recurrence is what? If the patient has having rheumatic heart disease, he has a documented rheumatic heart disease or has a prior rheumatic fever, and he develops one of the major criteria, or he develops fever, arthralgia or high CRP, which suggests that he has developed recurrence. Now how do you treat and prevent? Now steps of treatment and prevention are very important, because this will prevent the future development of a heart disease in the patient. So first step is primary prevention, where we will eradicate the streptococci from the throat. Second step is treatment by giving anti-inflammatory treatment. Third is the supportive treatment that you give to patient and manages complication. And finally is the secondary prevention to prevent recurrent attacks of rheumatic fever. So what is the primary prevention? The primary prevention is whenever the patient has come to you with a streptococcal throat infection, you have to treat him with antibiotic, and the most important antibiotic that you give is penicillin. It has to be given at a proper dosage and a proper duration, and especially concentrate on high risk group, especially the school age children. So primary prevention, what you do is you can give the patient either a single intramuscular injection of benzathine penicillin, which is according to the weight. If the patient is 27 kg, that is less than 30 kg, can be taken. You give him 6 lakh units IM. If he is more than 27 kg or 30 kg, you give 1.2 mega units, which is given IM. Okay, this is a single shot which is given. Remember, with penicillin, always give a test dose. Tomorrow you will become interns, you will go to PHC, CHC. If you are giving penicillin to anybody, you have to give a test dose. Do not give the benzathine penicillin dose without a test dose. Or what you can give him, you can give him oral penicillin 250 milligram 2 to 3 times daily. If it is adult, 500 milligram 2 to 3 times daily, and has to be given for 10 days. The duration is very important. But if the patient is allergic to a penicillin, you can give him erythromycin, or you can give him, which can be estolate form or ethyl succinate form, and this can be given for, again erythromycin has to be given for 10 days. Plus nowadays you can also give him azithromycin for 5 days, and the dosage is according to the body weight, for 20 to 40 or 40 milligram per kg. Okay, now this we come to the treatment of arthritis now. So the patient has come to you with rheumatic fever. Now he has got arthritis. You have seen it is polyarthritis, or it is, so once you have diagnosed him, what is the treatment you give him? The treatment that you give him is giving aspirin. So the aspirin is given in the dose of 75 to 100 milligram per kg for divided doses. Now this is given for 6 weeks, generally 6 weeks, but you have to taper the dose. Once you have given for 4 weeks, you can go on to 50 milligram per kg for another 2 weeks. Now in carditis, if the patient has developed carditis, you have to start him on corticosteroids. It is given in the dose of 2 milligram per kg per day. You give for first 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you decrease the dose for another 2 weeks, and when you are tapering the dose, you have to put the patient on aspirin and continue the treatment for 6 weeks. So arthritis, you treat him with aspirin, duration for at least 6 weeks, and carditis, you treat him with steroids, and when you start tapering the steroids, you have to put him on aspirin, and this has to continue for at least 6 to 8 weeks. Now supportive management, if the patient is naturally the patient is not well, so he has to be put on bed rest. If he has gone into CHF, he has to treat him with diuretics, digitalis. Now if the patient is having chorea, now the treatment of chorea is, most important is, you do not you can just give him diazepam, but the definitive treatment is by giving haloperidol or promethazine. So this is the treatment. And what is the secondary prevention? So once you have treated him for chorea, and chorea generally subsides by itself by around 4 to 6 weeks. So do not have to give very long duration of treatment. So haloperidol is best drug, then chlorpromazine is there, and some mild sedatives that can be given to the patient. Then how do you prevent secondary? Now secondary prevention is very important. In this, again, penicillin is the preferred drug, where you give 1.2 mega units every 3 weekly. Now, every 3 weekly is the best way to treat him, giving intramuscularly. But supposing in our country the patient says he cannot come every 3 weekly, so even 4 weekly would do, but you have to give him an injection of benzathine penicillin, or you can put him orally at 250 milligram twice daily. Patient who are allergic can be given erythromycin and azithromycin also. Now, what is the duration of prophylaxis? Now, duration of prophylaxis is rheumatic fever without carditis. You have to continue for 5 years, or until the age of 18 years, whichever is longer. Now, if the patient has rheumatic fever with carditis and heart disease, then you have to treat him for at least 10 years since last residual episode, or at least till the age of 40 years, sometimes even lifelong prophylaxis. Now, rheumatic fever with carditis with no residual heart disease, you have to treat him till 10 years or well into adulthood, whichever is longer. And if he has valvular disease, you have to give him lifelong therapy. And so this is very important. So duration, because longer duration makes the patient non-compliant. So they have to be, you have to emphasize that if you are non-compliant, what is going to happen to his heart, and sudden deaths are very common. So 5 years, 10 years, 10 years, and up to even 40 years if the patient is having carditis. So emphasis on duration is very important. And if it is a valvular disease, severe valvular disease, it might have to go lifelong. So what is important is that whenever you are in a hospital, one should maintain a register, because once you maintain a register and you have a phone number, you can go back to the patient. Especially in our country, if we want to promote rheumatic heart disease, it's very important that we have a register system, and we can go back to the patient. Like 3 weeks, the patient is supposed to come back for his injection. He's not come back, you give him a call. If he still doesn't come back, maybe somebody goes and visits that person in the village or in his house and tells him the importance of the disease. So only if you tell the patients, if you confer with them, if you take them into confidence, because taking patient into confidence, the family into confidence, is best method of giving secondary prophylaxis. Otherwise, what happens is that it is a very long duration disease. Taking an IM injection of penicillin is very painful. Every time they have to come, they have to be tested. A test dose has to be given. So it becomes cumbersome. It is financially burdensome on the patient also. So for that, it's important that you take them into confidence, tell them what the importance, because once he develops heart disease, once his mitral valves and aortic valves are involved, the final thing is going for the surgery, mitral valve replacement. So that would be more dangerous for his life. That would be a very complicating disease to have. So it is better that we prevent it. Then important thing to remember is, whenever non-medicated measure is improve the socio-economic status of the child. Now, what is the prognosis? Rheumatic fever can recover whenever the individual experiences new group B streptococcal infection, and if he is not on prophylactic medicine. Prognosis is good for the older age group, and if there has not been any carditis. And prognosis for the younger age group who have developed carditis or valvular lesion is worse. So rheumatic fever week is being celebrated generally. This is an African country I am showing you, so where they celebrate a rheumatic fever disease, because a sore throat could damage your child's heart. So this is the message which they convey to the families. I think this is very important in our country also. We should convey, we should have these kind of weeks where we can convey the messages to the population in general, what is importance of the treatment. Because what treatment that you use in nowadays for every sore throat, many times what happens is that patients are given cephalexin. So cephalexin which is given is not going to cure his, not going to prevent his future attacks. So the correct antibiotic choice for the correct correct diagnosis and correct antibiotic choice is very important for preventing future disease. So rheumatic heart disease is only truly preventable chronic heart condition. So as it is the only truly preventable chronic heart condition, important is that we cure the first episode, that once the child has come to you with rheumatic fever, treat him, but treat him with caution, because all infections are not bacterial. Some infections are viral also, so important to differentiate between viral and bacterial infection to prevent the misuse of antibiotics. And when you give antibiotics, antibiotics have to be given for a proper duration, not that you give for antibiotic for 2 days, patient feels well, he leaves the medicine. No, that is not done thing. Whenever you're giving antibiotics, it has to be emphasized to the patient and to the parent. Patient is maybe small, he cannot do it because we have a pediatric population with us, but to the parent that the duration of the antibiotic treatment is very important, which will prevent him from developing future manifestations like a rheumatic heart disease. So because rheumatic heart disease is a truly preventable chronic heart condition. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. Sorry for the repeated interruptions. If you have any queries, please convey them through your class representative. Maybe we can clear it in the next class. Next class I would be taking on bronchial asthma, another important condition which is going now. We are going to go into that season where many children are going to come to you with wheezing. So we would be talking about that. So just be alert. And just on the lighter note, my son is also taking his classes, online classes, and many times what I do, if I go and peek into his room, he would be just having his earphones on and he would be sleeping cozily in his blanket. So I hope you are not doing that and you are studying hard, and best of luck. So let's see you next time. Bye.